Good evening, Councillor Jameson. How are you this fine evening?
I'm fine. Oh, I can't. Oh, here.
Thank you, Councillor Olkey. I am fine. How are you?
Last time I checked, I was doing okay.
Okay, now where is this agenda? All right. I'm okay. Yep. Today, public meeting.
To those who are on the meeting waiting for us to begin, we're just having some technical difficulties. We need to get a couple more counselors online, so I do apologize for the delay, but we're adding two of the counselors here so that you can see them. We have Councillor Fody just joining us, and then Councillor Maybe, and we've got Councillor Oakley on the line, and the rest of council. And the deputy mayor needs to be bring up his as well. So please, we appreciate your patience.
We're live. There was an interesting discussion on the lower radio session. Denied public servants who won the vaccine mandate. Yeah, I mean, I know it's on. Just keep an eye on it. It doesn't precipitate. It's not precipitate. It doesn't anticipate mandates being supported when it comes to a higher court. It just means
and it's egregious violations.
yeah.
So obviously taking it as egregious. Built in lots to allow people to no one's up against it. So,
Ignorance is
yeah,
not an issue.
interesting stuff. That's what I was kind of.
Okay, so it seems, we'll wait for Councillor Gorell to come back. He just stepped out of the room and then we'll begin.
Well, you know where my phone is.
Okay, so we have everybody other than the deputy mayor, but in the essence of time, the deputy mayor is here in person in the council chambers, but he'll be logging on here shortly. So I'm going to call the meeting to order at 5:49 PM. Any declaration of interest or general nature thereof? Does anybody have an interest to declare? No interest. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is 3 planning reports that are coming forward, and 3.1, which is Z-2021-016, Borys Zizzo, 3388 County Road 3. Madam Planner, would you like to speak to that?
Certainly, I'm just going to share my screen quickly.
Is your microphone on?
I think it's on, I'm just not
Maybe.
right at it.
There we go. Just want to make sure that the people online can hear.
Sure, thank you. So this is an application for zoning bylaw amendment for the property at 3388 County Road 3. The application is to rezone the property to allow for a home occupation in a detached accessory building. If on the screen in front of you is a plot plan for the property that shows the structures on the property. The building here labeled as existing studio garage is proposed to be used as a law office. In addition, there will be studio space in the building itself. The zoning is also requesting provisions to be included to allow additions onto the existing structure. You can see on the plot plan in front of you, the darker shaded areas are proposed additions to the existing house. The existing house is located within the 30-meter setback from the waterfront and from the floodplain. So permission is required to allow the extensions to the back of the house. Notice was provided in accordance with the Planning Act. There was one inquiry in response to that notice, which was just an inquiry with respect to if the property would be used for a spa or if the proposed home occupation was a spa. That was the result of the labeling on the drawing itself and was clarified to the applicant that it's not intended to be used as a spa. The architect, as well as the owner, indicated that it was more of a concept in terms of what they were hoping to achieve with the renovations to their dwelling. I'd be happy to answer any questions. And I do know that the applicant is on the line as well, if there are any questions of them.
I was remiss in not reading the first piece, which I'll read again just so for the public and those on the call. So personal information collected at this public hearing is collected under the authority of the Planning Act and will be used to assist in making a decision on this matter. All names, addresses, opinions, and comments are collected and form part of the minutes which are available to the public. Questions regarding this collection should be forwarded to the Director of Planning. The purpose of the public meetings is to present planning applications in a public forum as required by the Planning Act. Following presentations by the applicant or staff, council members will have an opportunity to ask questions for clarification or further information. The meeting will then be open to the public for comments and questions. When you speak, please provide your name and address for the recording in the minutes. All comments should be directed to myself, the chair of the meeting. The applicant will be provided the opportunity to address public questions once all members of the public have made their submissions. For the applications being presented tonight, a report and recommendation are being presented to council. Following a council decision, notice will be circulated in accordance with the Planning Act. If a person or public body would have an ability to appeal the decision of the council to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the township before the bylaw is passed, person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. My apologies for not reading that at first. So does anybody here have questions of the planner before we go to any further clarification? So Councillor, maybe I'll recognize you and then Councillor Fody.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. So you just mentioned that it's going to be a law office, as it's noted here, a sauna. So is that the round structure is going to be a sauna even still on this? I'm a little confused. I was fine before you said law office.
Sorry, let me just share my screen again for clarification. They're two different structures. The sauna is proposed to be added to the back of the dwelling.
Yes.
You can see at the back here, this area.
Yes. Yes.
The sauna and the addition to the house are completely separate. The law office is proposed to be located within the existing accessory building, which is shown up here as a separate and detached building from the main structure.
Okay. Okay. And then a follow up, if you may. My second one was when I looked at the pictures of this particular location that they're locating this, it looks like there's substantial rock that's going to have to be mitigated there. And will that cause any damage to any of the structure or the water course around that building?
Just for clarification, you're referencing the back of the property?
Yes.
The Conservation Authority will be required to issue permits for any of the alteration because of its location within the 30-meter setback. So that'll be reviewed through the Conservation Authority permitting process.
Thank you.
Councillor Foti, you had your hand up?
Excuse me. Thank you, Your Worship, through you to our Director of Planning. Do you have a shot of this property showing neighboring residents? While you're checking that out for us, we're technically turning this into I would call lightweight commercial. So we're going to increase traffic for the neighbors. I'm just wondering how close neighbors are here. If they're not affected, fine.
Through your worship, I would note that the applicant has indicated that this is primarily a virtual meeting with clients and that clients are not anticipated to be coming and going from the site. So it's primarily a workspace.
Okay.
A home occupation is already a permitted use in the zone. So the only reason for the amendment for the home occupation is that it's in an accessory building rather than the main dwelling.
Okay.
And you can see in front of you on the screen, there are not very many neighbors in the area. This is an air photo showing this is the subject property and this is the nearest neighbor.
Right. But I had problems following the roadway on those pictures as to where the actual roadway lie with access to that property.
It's accessed off a private lane.
Okay. So that's it there? That
Yes, this is
that
the property.
concession line?
Yes.
But I mean, that yellow concession line is the access line.
I would defer to the applicant to clarify that for certain, but yes, it's addressed as 3388 County Road 3, but here's the county road. So there's a long private laneway to get to it.
Right. I saw the application posted at the end of County Road 3 when I went by there the last few times, but I didn't take it upon myself to help myself in there. But I just wanted some clarification that we're not encumbering any neighbors there. And if that's the case, I'm fine.
Any further questions for the applicant? Okay, so we have a question from a public member. Oh, sorry, the applicant, I apologize. So we're going to unmute you, Simon.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. I just wanted to address, if I could, Council Maybe's concerns about increasing traffic and about the encumbrance on neighbors. Just briefly to state that it is not intended that any clients of the law firm would attend this address. I am a lawyer who specializes in correctional law. I represent people who are incarcerated and help them get ready for reintegration into society and parole hearings, and deal with issues of their treatment while they're in custody. So by definition, all of my clients are incarcerated and cannot come to my house. And once that they're released, they're no longer my clients. So this is not, in my view, going to increase traffic at all to this location. In fact, if anything, it's going to decrease traffic by reducing my need to commute into Kingston to go to an office there every day. The private drive that accesses my residence off of County Road 3 is about an 800-meter long private drive. It services only one other residence off that driveway, which is my neighbors, Jeff and Nancy Singleton. I have spoken with them about this. They are in full support of this. My understanding is that Jeff Singleton may be on this meeting as well. He indicated to me he was going to attend to show his support for that. And I don't believe that there are any other neighbors sort of within the vicinity that would be impacted by anything, including construction noise. So that, I hope, answers the councillors' questions, and I'd certainly be happy to answer any other questions that committee members may have.
Are there any additional questions of the applicant? Do you have a question, Deputy Mayor? Okay. Okay, I guess that's everything unless there's anybody else on the line from the public who would like to ask a question. Just ask the clerk to scroll down just in case. Oh, they pop up to the top. Okay. I don't believe we've missed anybody, so we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. 3.2 Z-2021-015 Miller in Engineering and Surveying 1337 County Road 2. Madam Planner.
Thank you. Through you. This is an application for zoning amendment to rezone the property. Sorry, I didn't realize I wasn't sharing my screen yet. There we go. To rezone the subject property, which has recently been the subject of an application for consent to sever a lot off the front, which contains an existing dwelling. The property is currently zoned highway commercial along the frontage, with the balance of the land being zoned rural at the back of the property. This application for zoning amendment is to rezone the area, which was the severance, which will contain an existing dwelling, to the rural zone to allow rural residential use on the property. In addition, provisions are proposed to address an existing garage on the abutting retained parcel, which results in less than the required side yard setback in the highway commercial zone. This garage is intended to be renovated to be a residential use. However, the highway commercial use will continue on the west side of the property. So the amendments to this portion of the property are just minor in terms of looking at the resulting side yard of an existing structure. Notice was provided in accordance with the Planning Act, and there have been no inquiries with respect to this application.
Thank you, Madam Planner. Are there any questions? Counselor Maybe.
Thank you, Worship, through you. The only question I have is the driveway on this plan that we have in front of us. It looks like it's a shared driveway at the moment. Will there be a second driveway put in, or will there be a legal access for the one person to the east, I believe?
So I'm just going to the property photos.
I believe there's already a driveway in place for the secondary, what was considered the garage.
Yeah, I believe that there are already two separate access points to the property. And it's off the county road, so the county would be required to do any permitting. So there's the access to the existing barn garage or on the severed portion. And then on the retained portion, there is a separate entrance as well.
Does that answer your question? I think you actually showed the wrong drawing.
I did, I got
So-
it mixed up.
So the one that she showed is actually for the house, and then there's a driveway on the east, sorry, on the west side of the garage, I believe.
Yeah, it's
There's
very-
another driveway.
Yeah, very possible. This plan doesn't indicate that well, so that's why I'm kind of, yeah.
There is
and-
definitely
and
one over there. Yep.
So,
And we have the applicant on the line that we
Yes,
can
we
ask
do.
as well.
okay.
So there's that question. Are there any subsequent questions? If not, we'll go to the public and to the applicant. So do we have the applicant on the line, or is it Mr. Collette that's on behalf? Oh, there's Steve
Mr.
Miller.
Miller's on the
Yep,
line.
there we go. Mr. Miller, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. How are you?
Okay, good, thanks. Can
Good.
you answer the question about the driveway, please?
Yes. So as you saw in the picture, the severed portion has the driveway that is just east of the retained garage that's being converted to a house, and we have put a new separate driveway in to the west of the retained garage that services the retained property itself.
So the county has proved that access point off the
Yeah.
highway then?
Yes.
Okay. Are there subsequent questions? Okay, can we go back to the participants to see if there's any questions? Are there any hands up for the attendees? If anybody, neighbors have a question? Seeing none, we'll move on to 3.3 on the agenda, which is Z-2021-017 Cavanagh / ZanderPlan Inc., 311 Stratford Road. Madam Planner?
Thank you. So I'm just loading the report. Just be 1 second. So this is an application for zoning bylaw amendment to rezone the property at 311 Stratford Road to allow the roof of the boathouse to be used as an outdoor deck area. There have been recent committee of adjustment approvals on this property to allow the boathouse structure to be extended by 7 feet out into the water area. That minor variance was approved, not appealed, and is in effect. So the amendment that's in front of council this evening for a public meeting is whether or not the roof of the existing boathouse can be used as deck space. I have the plan in front of council or on the screen. This is the area of the expansion that was recently approved. And it's proposed to use the rooftop area for an outdoor deck area. I would note that in response to the notification of public meeting, there were 2 submissions provided. One was distributed to council by email earlier today. The second was from an adjacent neighbor indicating concerns with potential view impacts and the level of the deck in terms of looking into their residential structure.
Okay, Councillor Olkey has his hand up. Councillor Olkey, we'd like to ask some questions.
Yes, I would. I noted the correspondence today and the concerns. And it seems that there's an issue of semantics. Is a patio considered inhabited when people are using it? And the next concern I have is really with para 13.15. There was no indication of consideration, yes, no, or not applicable in the development application in that particular paragraph, which pertains to the provincial regulations. So the first one is really noting the controversy and how much weight that would hold with this council. And the next one really was administrative for the planner. Thank you.
So if I understand your questions correctly, one being the provincial policy, any application for zoning amendment is required to comply with the official plan, as well as the provincial policy statement. And our official plan includes policies with respect to compatibility and adverse impact. So in reviewing the application, staff will have reviewed the official plan and made specific comments with respect to possible impacts, which could include incompatible land uses, overlook, those types of matters. So all of that is taken into consideration in the staff review of an application for zoning bylaw amendment.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Olkey?
Well, I still note that para 13.15 is a requested amendment consistent with the provincial policy statement. It's not indicated in that paragraph. Yes, no, or not applicable. I think in this case, it should say not applicable.
It is applicable.
Just to keep it neat is what my concern is.
Yes, so it should indicate that, yes, it is. This is a site-specific amendment that doesn't impact provincial policy statement.
So that could be added to the report, amended. The report could be
It's in the
amended.
staff report that the proposed application is compliant with the provincial policy statement.
Understood. So that report would be attached to this planning report as well.
That report is included in the committee of the whole agenda
Correct.
this evening.
Okay. So was there an additional question, Councillor Olkey, with that?
Clarification of the term inhabited
Right.
with regard to the use of a patio or a structure. The correspondence I saw today was quite concerned that we were perhaps confused in the use of that term with regard to this property.
So for clarification, habitable space is space that can be lived in with facilities. Habitable space would be a residential unit or some type of a unit on the second level of a boathouse, which would not be supported and is not permitted. In this case, what's being requested is the use of that rooftop area as an open, unenclosed rooftop deck, which is not habitable space, but it's amenity space that could be used by the residents of the property.
Well, that clarifies that for me. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Councillor Gorell and then Councillor Maybe.
Thank you. Through your worship, Councillor Olkey brought up a point that if MPAC was looking at a property in that it's not habitable, so no matter what you build in the water, does MPAC take any account whatsoever? In other words, does it in the least increase the CVA of a given property? Is there a benefit financially in the tax base to this township from a space, a non-habitable human space?
That's a good question.
That's a very good question and not one that I'm able to give you a complete answer to. MPAC is copied on all applications and all applications for building permit are provided to MPAC. and fall back on their assessment of a property. MPAC will look at the use. I know that the structure itself may add to the assessed value of the property. The actual use of that structure, whether there's a rooftop amenity area or not, I don't know the answer to whether or not that would add to the assessment value of a property.
The assessment would be based off of all the structures on there, though. When they do their appraisal, it would be based off of all the structures. I'm pretty sure.
Thank
It
you.
would be.
Yep. I recognize Councillor Maybe, and then I'll recognize Councillor Jameson.
Thank you, Worship, through you. Kind of an observation, if it's site view with the picture that you have up right now, it's hard to see where a site view might be hindered on this property because of the point directly to the right of it. Secondly, it's an open boat port. There are no walls. And the pictures that I seen of that were with this package, the railing is all clear glass. So you'll have a area of maybe a foot or 2 feet right at your foot level that might be hindrance of sight line. Other than that, I don't see where the sight line would be lost. Thank you.
Councillor Jameson.
Just perhaps for discussion among ourselves later, but the business of boathouses and decks and kind of thing that one of the people has written a letter is concerned about, is there an option for us in the Planning Act to assess these structures separately as recreational buildings inside an existing impact assessment? That's a very convoluted way of trying to say, here's the boathouse, here's the house. Is there a way that there can be a premium put on building these things? Because at the end of the day, I think this is going to be a bigger and bigger problem, especially down on the river where the lots tend to be very narrow and deep, where we can see this on the map. And I just wonder if that's an option at all for us to look at a larger picture. Obviously not tonight.
I doubt that is an option. I'm not the official, but understanding MPAC, as I mentioned earlier with Councillor Gorell, an MPAC assessment is based on an assessed value of the whole property. So I doubt that you would see them give two separate values to one structure over another, because it would change their mandate as a whole and probably open up a can of worms that they're not ready to deal with. We can't even get phased in assessment as it is. So anyways, I'll let Marnie speak and then I'll recognize Councillor Fody and then Councillor Maybe.
If I could just clarify, I think we're talking about two separate things because the zoning doesn't incorporate impact. So the zoning regulates the form, the size of the structure, the setbacks, and where it can be on the property and how big it can be. And that's what we're looking at in terms of the structure itself. With respect to the assessment through MPAC, obviously they're looking at the resulting structure that's permitted on the property and doing their valuation based on that. But what's in front of us with respect to this boathouse is the use.
And whether it meets guidelines.
And whether the use is permitted or not.
Okay, Councillor Fody, you had your hand up, then Councillor Maybe, and then Deputy Mayor, and then we'll go to the public for questions.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to our Director of Planning. Did you say at the onset there's an appeal to this application?
No, I did not. Sorry for clarification. I said there were two public submissions made this evening.
Okay.
There's no appeal. An appeal is only able to be made once a decision is made. on the
Okay, well, I
application.
thought it was in reference to the previous.
Oh, so for clarification, now I understand what you're talking. There was a minor variance application,
Yes.
which allowed the 7-foot extension across the width of this,
Right.
which was at the Committee of Adjustment in October.
Mhm.
That application was approved and was not appealed. So that decision is in full effect, which regulates the size and form of what is on the property.
Okay, all right, thank you. I just misunderstood you. Thank you.
Councillor Maybe? Well, I recognize you and then
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The only other thing I had written down was how many other boat structures within proximity of this particular property have rooftop access or decks that are for the same purpose? Thank you.
Through your worship, been looking at the air photo, there are no others in the immediate area. However, we did do a zoning amendment I believe it was in October on Benson Park Road, which is to the south of this property, to allow a similar structure.
Deputy Mayor Lackey.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. What I'm surmising is that all we're discussing is whether or not the rooftop can be used
As a
for-
deck.
as a deck.
That's correct.
And it's engineered, and from what I've seen in the report, it's got 42-inch glass railings. So I'm not sure I understand what the pushback is.
So through your worship, if this application was approved, it would be subject to site plan control to regulate the guards, the structures, the access, to ensure that everything is up to building code in terms of the railings and those types of things. At this point, all railings have been removed from the structure because rooftop access and occupancy of that rooftop is not permitted. So the applicant has confirmed that all of the railings have been removed. Railings have been put in place to restrict access to the rooftop structure to make sure that the site is safe and in accordance with building code, so that nobody could fall from the edge off one of those areas. So
Yeah, I've been there, and I don't see what the issue is once they put the railings back on.
It's
You know.
because of previous decision that was made in 2011 on the property,
Well,
correct?
in
It's-
2011, there was a minor variance approved that included a specific condition to restrict the use of the rooftop and that there be no use of the rooftop. That's consistent with the existing zoning definition of marine facility, which does not include amenity space or deck space. Marine facility is strictly defined as a facility for the mooring and docking of boats. So that is what's in front of council this evening for the public meeting, is to amend that provision of the zoning bylaw.
Go ahead.
Again, we've got boathouses that have spaces above them that are used for many other things, for storage spaces, for, whatever. And I know we've had some that came before us where we approved the space on the roof. So I'm not sure why this has to be so difficult.
I don't think it's a matter of being difficult. It's about dotting the i's and crossing the t's. That's why it has to come forward for zoning amendment. That's all it is. Okay. Councillor Gorella, you have another question, and then
Just a quick follow-up, as was introduced by Councillor Lackey regarding, made a statement that this boathouse has great engineering, has lots of girders and so on. In every document that I've read that's available to the public, I have not yet seen any requirement in that planning or a diagram that indicated this, quote, a structural attachment to the shore. So let's be clear that, yes, a boat port, a marine facility was built. And at the same time, it appears to me anyway, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it appears that they went ahead and built what has been classified by Ms. Sanders' letter as a pedestrian walkway. That pedestrian walkway was considered by an engineering firm at the Committee of Adjustment. It was mentioned that that was now a structural integral part of this. It seems a little, I'd like some clarification on what was permitted originally, because I believe it was a marine facility, a boat port, a wonderful, beautiful boat port. But then it appears that some further structural work was done, a pedestrian walkway. Did they come to the building department and say, hey, we have more engineering? Do we need more engineering because we didn't build a building that was significant enough with I-beams and so on? So that would be my question. Did specifically they ask and receive a permit for structural connection to the mainland? And did they ask and receive a permit for a pedestrian walkway?
Your worship, I would This application was brought forward, or I should say the Committee of Adjustment application
Yep.
was brought forward because construction was identified as occurring without a permit. So in response to that, to those orders, the application for minor variance was submitted, which included that additional information, which would then form part of the permitting for the roof extension associated with the minor variance application. I would also note that the applicant is on the line and could probably speak to that in more detail than myself.
It struck me as I was reading through all of the material that by and large, the contractor had a great deal to do with this. And I wonder, has the contractor been contacted as to the role, and did they receive engineering diagrams and so on? Because I don't believe that the applicant was on site during construction. Thank
I
you.
think we're getting a bit off topic, and I'm not trying to, I think this is a question that could be addressed in the further motion, because it's pertaining to building code and building permit, which is not, I'm trying to make the connection to the planning application. That's all. I just want to make sure that we're staying in the same lane. Because if it's, I guess at the end of the day, it's connecting the two. That's the question that you have about engineering, about.
It's a public meeting, and I want the public to be aware of how we've arrived here, because it's a beautiful boat port. It's a beautiful marine facility. There's no question, but the public deserves to know how we arrived at this meeting. As Councillor Lackey has pointed out, why are we here? Well, I think some of these past facts, and they are facts, are relevant to why we are here and why this council is being asked to approve something. We deserve to know all the facts too. And that's why this is a public meeting. So let's get it out there for the public. Thank you.
Fair enough. Councillor, maybe you said you have one last question, and then we'll go to the public.
Yes.
Or, sorry, Councillor Foti, did you just have a quick question afterwards? Okay, go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you very much. The only thing I had was the official plan actually states that we don't have residences above boat ports, but doesn't really specify about what this is happening. So
This is not habitable space.
yeah.
It's an accessory use, I believe is what you
That's correct.
termed it. So Councillor Foti, quick question, and then we'll go to the public.
Thank you, Your Worship. There's a bit of confusion on my part anyway. I agree with Councillor Grell that we're at the planning meeting here, and yet we're referring to approval that was given by the Committee of Adjustment. And yet there's a bunch of red flags flying off in different directions here over for various things. Are we within our rights to postpone any decision, at least? Because I suspect if we don't turn this down, so to speak, not that we're voting here tonight, but this is going to come forward to next week's council, most likely.
It's on tonight's agenda to come forward.
Right.
We'll be discussing it later. So
All I'm saying is I'm going to take my direction from the Director of Planning. Are we prepared to move forward with this, or do we lack too much information yet?
go ahead.
It
Madam
appears
Clerk.
the latter. Thank you.
Thank you, through your worship. In light of the public input that was received today, I would note that this application is on the regular committee of the whole agenda this evening with a report and a recommendation. However, as I said, in light of the public input received and the questions from council, it would be my recommendation to amend the report that's in front of council this evening to recommend deferral to allow the applicant to provide information to address the concerns that have brought up tonight, to address the concerns that have been brought forward in terms of the public submissions that have been made in writing, and staff would bring a report forward with a recommendation at a later date, once all of that information is consolidated and in a report to council.
Okay, so I'm going to ask that if there's any questions from the public, that they ask those questions, and then if the applicant's on the line, that they can answer that as well. And then obviously in committee of the whole, the motion will come forward for discussion or deferral at that point in time.
Yep.
Yeah, Mr. Cavanagh's on the line, but I think I'd like to take are there any other hands up for any further questions? And then we can just let Mr. Cavanagh address them. Joel, okay. So Joel, I believe Mr. Dandeli, sorry, I'm not saying that correctly. That you had, yep. I apologize, that you were one of the submissions today, correct?
Correct. And as I said in the submission, it's not that we're against neighbors and residents improving their properties and renovating their properties, but I just want everybody to take a step back, because Mr. Tom Fair actually gave his version of what the Planning Act or the zoning actually states, and clarifies in his own, and states in his own words, that the top of the deck is not permitted for the use that's being put forward. And that's why there's the zoning amendment put forward to council. There was also a comment with regards to how many other above boathouse decks there are in the area. There is only the one that was recently permitted in Benson Park. To my knowledge, and being a resident of the area and living and boating in the area for years, there isn't any other. So this is creating a precedent for the area. And again, I go back to what the official plan is there for, what the planner considerations are to undertake. And again, if this is approved, it will be a huge marketing card for anyone else who wants to do this. And you're going to go from 2 above boathouse decks to countless above boathouse deck applications coming in. And as I stated again in my submission, I think it would be to everyone's interest, township and residents, for the planning department to call on some of the other planners in the Muskoka area who are now dealing with out of control construction, and they don't know how to get control of it again. And that's a real issue. It's been in the paper countless times, and it just doesn't deal with boathouse issues. It deals with many others. And I think in order to protect the character of the area, any sort of amendments to the current zoning bylaws that have been generated from the official plan should be put on hold until it's studied as to what the long-term effects are going to be. And it's not just the long-term effect of one change, because one change is going to lead to another change, which is going to lead to another change. And we all know that anyone else coming forward with an amendment or request to amend a bylaw will take a look at what's already been allowed, and we'll go that extra bit further to try and push the envelope further. And again, I don't want to go against the Cavanaghs directly, but it's, again, my concern is the long-term effect to the area.
Thank you very much. Are there any further questions for the applicant before we go to the applicant? Seeing no hands being risen, we'll go to Mr. Cavanagh for him to address any of the questions or comments made this evening.
Good evening. Can you hear me, guys?
We can. Thank you.
Okay. One thing, I don't know where to go, where to start, because there's lots going on, but like keeping in the lanes, the mayor had mentioned that earlier. We're here for a zoning amendment. We're not here for structural drawings. We're not here for if I have done bad in the past or done good in the past. We're here for a zoning amendment. I don't see how putting a glass railing on top of the boathouse and allowing my family and friends to stand on top of the boathouse and enjoy the vistas from out there is going to affect or do anything wrong to the Planning Act. The last comment said, you know, one of the things we did say, it is habitual means to live on top of it. So we are not going to live on there. We're not putting a bathroom up there. We're going to put some patio furniture up there and a railing on it. And, you know, you're saying, and another comment he said, well, it might get out of control. Well, I think this is getting it in control by me coming forward and asking to legally use the top of the boathouse. I can drive around the township and take pictures of more than a dozen rooftop patio boathouses that do not conform to, because they didn't go get a zoning amendment. So I'm trying to make the use of the top of the boathouse legal, just as my neighbor on Benson Park did just recently. He applied before he built it, before he used it, and he got all the approvals. I have been using the top of the boathouse. Nobody's complained. Everybody thought it was fine. But then when I went back and raised the boathouse up, extended the boathouse, didn't want to be going to my cottage and sneaking on top of the boathouse. I'm trying to make it 100% legal. So I'm going back and asking for a zoning amendment to make it legal to go on top of the boathouse. And I don't think that anybody would say that there's any way that this is harming anybody for me to stand on top of the boathouse. It is a, and when I go to the boathouse, when I go to the cottage on the weekends, we go up there Friday afternoons, leave Monday mornings, spend basically half my life up there. It is a beautiful, quiet place, and it is quiet on top of the boathouse 90% of the time. Labor Day weekend and Victoria Day weekend, and in the hot months of the summer, it's busy. But most of the time, she's a pretty quiet place up there. And I'm looking for the council's support for a zoning amendment here today to allow me to stand on top of the boathouse. And we can get into the structural part of it, but anything structural is going to meet code, or we won't be allowed to go on top of it. So I don't think we need to talk about that. If Your Majesty, Miss Mayor, would like to point me in something you'd like me to else I talk about, I would talk about something else, because I seem like I'm a little flustered here because I'm on candid camera or something.
Yeah, I think that you've answered the questions that were asked to date, but we have further discussion at council. So are there any other questions of Mr. Cavanagh before we wrap this up? Sorry, Tracy Zander. So Ms. Zander, I'm assuming it's female. I apologize if it's not.
That's correct.
Oh, she's the engineer. I apologize.
No, not
I should
quite.
ask.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. My name is Tracy Zander. I'm a land use planner, not an engineer. I've been working with Mr. Cavanagh on this project, and so just wanted to highlight a couple of things. As you heard from your planner, this is outdoor living space, amenity space, deck, rooftop deck. It's not to be human habitation. It's not living space. It's just outdoor space. Some of the members of council have pointed out the goal is a glass railing, so the visibility will be quite low. It's the light will pass through, the sight lines will pass through. It's not a wall. It's a glass space to be railing to be constructed. Your Conservation Authority review didn't raise any concerns with this. There's no natural heritage impacts or anything like that. The size and the scale of the boathouse, as your planner has indicated, has already been addressed through the Committee of Adjustment decision. So the scale and the massing of the boathouse, it's already there and it's already approved. So what you have before you is the discussion of the appropriateness of the rooftop to be outdoor living space. And as you heard from Mr. Cavanagh, and I expect there are a number of other rooftop decks in the township that already exist. He's trying to come to you with an application and make this a legal use, not illegal, and a legal use on his property, and that's what he's asking for you for this evening. And as he said, I don't see any environmental impacts. I don't see any natural heritage impacts. No long-term off-site impacts as a result of this. So I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any. Otherwise, we will await your discussion when you move into your committee meeting. Thank you.
Any further questions?
Hello, am I still live?
You are. Please keep it brief. We're late for council as it is, Mr. Kavanagh, but if you have any
All I
further
wanted to say
questions.
is that if this is on tonight for the committee of the whole, I'd prefer to keep it on and get the answer tonight if possible, rather than defer to a later date.
Well, that'll be at the will of the council and the recommendations from the planner. So we'll have to get into our council meeting to get that to that point. So
Okay.
any
Sorry.
okay. So any further questions? Seeing none, the motion is put forward by Counselor Maybe and seconded by Counselor Foti that the public meeting adjourn. All those in favor, please signify. All those opposed, and we're carried. We're moving into committee of the whole, which is a separate link. So just wait back and we'll be coming back on a different channel, different time. So within the next 5 minutes. Thank you, everyone.